India, a country with a population that has surpassed that of China, has always had a strong desire to become the next China or even surpass China. Therefore, India is learning and imitating China's development experience in many aspects. For example, the Indian government once proposed a grand plan to follow China's south-to-north water diversion project and transfer part of the abundant water resources in the north and east to the water-scarce western and southern regions. At the same time, they also plan to connect multiple rivers in the country into a complex water network system. The budget of this project is said to be as high as about 170 billion US dollars, which is extremely large. However, there is a problem that deserves attention. It has been 44 years since the plan was proposed, but the Indian version of the south-to-north water diversion is still on the PPT. So far, only one branch line has been completed and it has not dared to be put into operation, and there is no sign of the main project starting. So how grand is China's south-to-north water diversion that India has been in trouble for 44 years? What is the core reason that has prevented India from implementing this plan over the years? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now let's get into today's topic. China, a country that continues to create miracles, has built many amazing century-class projects. Among them, the most representative is the South-to-North Water Diversion Project. This project is the longest water diversion project in the world so far and is regarded as one of the most controversial strategic projects. As early as the last century, China faced a serious problem of uneven distribution of water resources. The South has abundant rainfall, accounting for more than 80% of the total national water, while the North is dry and rainless, and even agricultural irrigation has become a problem. Faced with this situation, the Chinese government proposed a bold idea to divert water resources from the south to the north. The goal of this plan is to redistribute water resources through the construction of large-scale canals, water conservancy hubs, and other facilities so that people in the northern region can also use sufficient water. According to the plan, the South-to-North Water Diversion Project is divided into three main routes: the East Line, the Middle Line, and the West Line, connecting the four major river basins of the Yellow River, Huaihe River, Haihe River, and Yangtze River. This will form a national water resources network for horizontal and three vertical north-south allocation, east-west mutual assistance. Among them, the East Line project starts from the Yangzhou Jiangdu Water Conservancy Hub, passes through Shandong and Hebei along the way, and finally reaches Tianjin. The total length of this line is about 1,200 kilometers, crossing 5 provinces, and the scale of water diversion reaches 14.8 billion cubic meters. The Middle Line project, starting from the Danjianka Reservoir, the water flows all the way north, passing through Beijing, Tianjin, and other places. This line is about 1,500 kilometers long, spanning 4 provinces and 2 municipalities, and the scale of water diversion is 13 billion cubic meters. The other part of the West Line project. It is planned to build a water diversion line with a total length of 1,751 kilometers, and the water diversion volume is expected to reach 14 billion cubic meters. As far as I know, China has begun to build the South-to-North Water Diversion Project since 2002, with a total investment of 10 trillion yuan. What is amazing is that it took China only 12 years to successfully put the first phase of the East and Middle Line into use in 2014. Since the water was put into operation, the water transfer volume of the first phase of the East and Middle Line has exceeded 70 billion cubic meters, benefiting 7 provinces and municipalities along the route, covering a total of more than 176 million people. At the same time, the project has also replenished a total of 8.5 billion cubic meters of water for rivers along the northern route, helping to reduce groundwater overexploitation by more than 5 billion cubic meters. The once dry farmland has regained its greenness, and the dry river has also regained its vitality. It is worth noting that when seeing the huge benefits that the South to North Water Diversion Project has brought to China, India also plans to invest $170 billion to build water diversion facilities. However, India's plan seems to be facing difficulties. So, what happened behind this? When you look closely, you will find that India, like China, faces the problem of uneven distribution of water resources. However, the situations of the two countries are exactly the opposite. China is rich in water resources in the south and lacks water in the north, while India is abundant in water in the north and relatively poor in the south. The Gangetic Plain in northern India has very concentrated rainfall because the Himalayas block water vapor. The average annual precipitation here is generally above 1,000 millimeters, and even some areas can reach 2,000 millimeters. It is a veritable water-rich mining area. Coupled with more than 30 major rivers such as the Ganges and the Yamuna River, the surface runoff in this area is very considerable. Among them, the annual flow of the Ganges is as high as 507 billion cubic meters, and the Yamuna River also has 550 billion cubic meters. The two account for more than 59% of the surface runoff in India, which can be called India's lifeline. In contrast, the Deccan Plateau in southern India is difficult to intercept enough water vapor due to its low terrain, and the average annual precipitation is only about 500 to 800 millimeters. At the same time, because the southern region is close to the equator, the evaporation is particularly large, making the already scarce water resources even more tense. This serious imbalance in water resources has put great pressure on social stability. Faced with the dilemma of uneven distribution of water resources, India has also considered building water conservancy projects to adjust this situation. As early as the 1970s, India had begun to conceive relevant plans. It was not until 1980 that the Indian government formally proposed the Inland River Networking Plan. This plan envisions connecting the main rivers in the country by building 13,000 kilometers of water diversion channels, hundreds of reservoirs and 30 dams to form a huge comprehensive water conservancy project network. According to this plan, India hopes to dig 14 river channels in the Himalayas and 16 river connection projects in the southern peninsula, which will be implemented in 3 phases. After the plan is completed, the abundant water resources in the north will be transported to the water-scarce southern region and Rajasthan in the west through these water conservancy facilities. From the above information, India's water diversion plan was proposed earlier than China, but in the following decades, there was almost no substantial progress in this plan. So, what is the reason why India is unable to push forward this grand water diversion plan? After investigation, we found that the reasons behind the difficulty in advancing India's inland river interconnection plan are very complicated. The first is the cost issue. In 2001, India experienced a severe drought, and the crisis forced the Indian government to put the Inland River Interconnection Plan back on the agenda. However, according to estimates at the time, the cost of the project was as high as $110 billion. In that year, India's fiscal revenue was less than $50 billion, and its annual GDP was only $485.4 billion. This astronomical expenditure is obviously beyond India's ability to bear. By 2022, with the growth of India's GDP, the issue of construction funds for this plan was discussed again. However, due to the passage of time and various uncontrollable factors, the cost of the plan has already risen sharply. According to official Indian estimates, the Inland River Interconnection Plan now requires about $170 billion. This amount is equivalent to 44% of India's GDP in 2022. Such a high total cost is still an unbearable burden for India. In addition to cost, another core issue is the distribution of benefits. We all know that the allocation of water resources has never been just a technical or engineering issue, but also deeply involved in the game of interests. No matter which country, stakeholders will give priority to their own needs, and few are willing to give up resources for free. Although northern India is rich in water resources, the northern population also accounts for more than 50% of the country's total population. So the demand for water is naturally huge. As a federal country, the interests of Indian states are different, and the northern states are particularly sensitive to the control of water resources. They are worried that once local water is transported to the south, it will restrict their own development. Therefore, the Uttar Pradesh government has always been vigilant and even resistant to the water transfer plan, which undoubtedly further aggravates the difficulty of the plan. Since the various states in India have great power and can disobey federal orders, this is also a problem for the Inland River Interconnection Plan. In addition, many rivers in South Asia do not just flow through India, but cross the borders of multiple countries. The upper reaches of a river may be in India, while the lower reaches belong to other countries, which makes the Inland River Interconnection Plan face serious diplomatic resistance. Among them, Bangladesh's opposition is particularly fierce. For example, in 2009, India planned to build a dam in the upper reaches of the Burgla River, which is an important part of the Inland River Interconnection Plan. However, the lower reaches of the Burgla River flow through Bangladesh. If the dam is built, India will inevitably intercept most of the water flow, and Bangladesh itself is also a country with tight water resources. Faced with this situation, Bangladesh expressed strong opposition, believing that this will seriously threaten its agricultural water use and ecological environment. This matter even became the fuse of the domestic political struggle in Bangladesh, and the opposition party took the opportunity to criticize the ruling party for being too weak on India. What's more complicated is that the economic relationship between India and Bangladesh is also delicate. Many Indian companies regard Bangladesh as an important export market. It is not cost-effective for India to completely damage bilateral relations because of a dam. In order to avoid greater diplomatic conflicts, the plan was eventually shelved. It is worth noting that after the Modi government came to power in 2014, India began to take a tougher stance to promote the Inland River Interconnection Plan. By 2019, with the completion of the last dam, the first phase of the project was finally completed. However, just as India was preparing to operate the first phase of the water diversion project, problems emerged again. This time the opponents were farmers. The water diversion project involved their interests, triggering the largest farmer protest in decades, and the march lasted for months. Although the project has been completed, it has not been officially put into operation due to the pressure of the protests. In fact, India's attempt to promote a large-scale infrastructure project like the Inland River Interconnection Plan before building a sound underlying governance structure will undoubtedly cause social dissatisfaction and conflict. This is the case with the demonstration project, so other more complex projects can be imagined. Judging from the above problems, India's desire to emulate China in building water diversion projects is obviously difficult. Whether it is cost, benefit distribution, diplomatic relations, or the coordination ability of the internal society, the realization of this plan seems out of reach. So, do you think India has the possibility of realizing this water diversion plan in the future?